ministers is completely unacceptable, whether that's from number 10 or anywhere else. And I've made that repeatedly clear to my staff, to the Cabinet, and put in place a number of procedures where there have been such allegations to give me a level of assurance that it has not happened in relation to direct briefings against ministers and members of the Cabinet. But I've been really clear and consistent on this with my staff, with my team, with the Cabinet, and put in place procedures when there are allegations.
Good day and welcome back to British Report. All right, buckle up, buttercups. Because if you thought British politics had peaked on the utterly unhinged scale, prepare yourselves for a new high. We are talking about a political and cultural firestorm that has just engulfed Westminster, and at its epicentre is none other than Nigel Farage, who, in a display of rhetorical savagery, has delivered an absolutely brutal, unscripted political annihilation of Prime Minister Keir Starmer on live national television. The issue, arguably the most sensitive, ethically charged and downright incendiary topic of our time, the new NHS trial into puberty blockers for children. Farage, backed by his four formidable Reform MPs, has not just voiced concerns, he has publicly demanded the immediate halt of this NHS trial, launching a devastating, no-holds-barred attack on Starmer and his Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. He's not just criticising the government, he's accusing them of overseeing state-sponsored child abuse dressed up as research. Yes, you heard that right. This single explosive intervention has exposed a deep, festering moral rift at the very heart of the Labour government, leaving Starmer trapped between his commitment to bland political neutrality, his desire to follow official-sounding medical advice, and the rapidly building undeniable consensus that this trial is fundamentally unethical, dangerous, and a ticking time bomb for his credibility. Farage hasn't merely criticised the policy, he has utterly destroyed the government's moral standing on an issue that touches the rawest nerves of the British public. Quick favour, if you are loving this chaotic, dramatic insight into the unprecedented intersection of medical ethics and political warfare, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It is free. Takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. Because what we're witnessing is a masterclass in how to take a complex, nuanced medical debate and turn it into a political nuclear warhead perfectly aimed at the Prime Minister's carefully constructed image of responsible leadership. So let's unpack this grenade, shall we? The catalyst for this political explosion, this utter pandemonium, is the rather innocuously named Pathways Clinical Study. Now, this study, commissioned by NHS England, sounds terribly official, terribly scientific, doesn't it? It's designed to recruit around text 226 young people, all in the name of assessing the impact of puberty-suppressing hormones. The entire premise of this trial, we are told, was a direct response to the now infamous and utterly damning Cass review into children's gender care. Dr. Hilary Cass's review, for those who've been living under a particularly large rock, concluded, with the force of an oncoming train, that the evidence base supporting the routine use of puberty blockers for children was, and I quote, poor and, quite frankly, built on shaky foundations. Her recommendation? That these powerful drugs should only be prescribed within a formal, highly controlled research setting. Sounds sensible, right? A cautious approach? Well, not according to Nigel Farage. For him and his Reform UK party, the trial itself, the very existence of it, is the problem, not the solution. It's the equivalent of saying the house is on fire and the solution is to conduct a detailed, long-term study on the flammability of the curtains while the blaze rages. Utterly nonsensical. And this, my friends, is where Farage, with the precision of a seasoned sniper, steps onto the political stage. In a scathing, unminced and utterly brutal letter sent directly to the Prime Minister, the 5 Reform MPs, including Farage himself, didn't just express concerns. They unleashed a barrage of accusations. They declared without equivocation that this trial will expose already vulnerable children to life-changing and irreversible consequences, the full extent of which is unknown. But they didn't stop there. Oh no. They then delivered the money shot. The phrase that has sent shockwaves through the political establishment, using children as experimental subjects in this way is ethically indefensible. And just for good measure, they landed the final devastating blow. The Pathways trial represents state-sponsored child abuse, dressed up as research, and is wholly incompatible with the NHS duty to safeguard children and do no harm. State-sponsored child abuse. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't mere political rhetoric. This is a deliberate, calculated framing of the issue as a matter of fundamental child safety and government complicity, directly attacking the Prime Minister's claim to be acting responsibly, to be following the science, or indeed to be acting with any shred of moral authority whatsoever. It's a direct accusation that Starmer's Labour government is presiding over a medical scandal in the making, and it paints a picture so bleak, so utterly damning, that it's almost impossible for the government to simply brush it aside with bland statements and medical jargon. But the real genius of Farage's intervention, the moment he truly destroys Keir Starmer's carefully curated image, came on live radio. He utterly exposed the raw, undeniable nerves within the government, specifically targeting the palpable unease, the outright discomfort of Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Now, Streeting, when speaking last Friday on LBC Radio, made an admission that was, quite frankly, astonishing. He conceded with a tone of clear discomfort that he is not comfortable candidly about it. A stunning, almost unprecedented admission from a sitting health secretary defending a flagship NHS policy. Streeting, to his credit, acknowledged the Cass Review's utterly damning findings and admitting it uncovered utterly shocking levels of unprofessionalism, lack of proper clinical oversight, and the prescription of puberty blockers without evidence. He then attempted to provide the governmental justification, the flimsy rationale for continuing with the trial, stating, "But Hilary Cass also recommended that we do a proper study." He added, trying to reassure, "The Pathway study involves a whole range of treatments and care, including therapeutics or mental health support, but it also included a trial on this puberty blockers thing." And then, again, the bombshell, "I'm not comfortable candidly about it." This, my friends, is precisely the point where Farage, with the surgical precision of a seasoned political assassin, seizes the moment and absolutely destroys Starmer's already wobbly position. He immediately pounces on the glaring, undeniable contradiction. How on earth can a government led by Keir Starmer ban the routine use of these powerful drugs due to a catastrophic lack of evidence and overwhelming safety concerns, only to then turn around and place hundreds of incredibly vulnerable children into a study that even its own health secretary, the man ultimately responsible, is not comfortable with? It's a logical pretzel, a moral contortion that simply makes no sense. Farage argues with compelling force that by allowing this trial to proceed, Starmer's government is not merely making a questionable medical decision. It is placing children at foreseeable risk while offering no credible justification that any potential benefit outweighs the harm. And he hammers home the point about the known concerns regarding the long-term physical, psychological, sexual and reproductive outcomes, concerns that the Cass Review itself amplified. The entire premise of the trial, in Farage's view, is built on quicksand, an attempt to gather evidence for something that should never have been considered in the first place, especially when the participants are impressionable, vulnerable children. He effectively turns the government's cautious approach into an act of reckless endangerment. The political pressure on Prime Minister Starmer is now not just immense, it is overwhelming. He is caught in a vice. On one side, he risks alienating a vocal segment of his own party and the wider trans lobby if he halts the trial, potentially drawing accusations of backtracking on commitments. On the other side, and this is where Farage's attack is so devastating, he faces a potent, rapidly building cross-party moral assault from figures like Farage and the formidable Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, who last month unequivocally warned that the trial must be scrapped before more damage is done to children. This is a rare, powerful alignment of political forces, united by a profound moral conviction and tapping into a deep-seated public anxiety over child safeguarding. Starmer is trapped. He cannot convincingly argue that the trial is safe when his own health secretary is expressing discomfort. He cannot claim to be following the science when the very basis of that science has been exposed as poor. By elevating this issue into a primary political battleground, Farage has successfully portrayed the Labour government as a cold, ethically compromised establishment willing to preside over what he terms an experiment on vulnerable young people. In contrast, he positions Reform UK as the only party willing to speak an uncomfortable truth, to stand up for common sense and, crucially, to uphold the fundamental principle of do no harm to children. The government's official defence, issued by a spokesperson for the Department for Health and Social Care, stating that the trial has had extremely rigorous safety checks and will help provide the evidence that is currently lacking, is a bland, bureaucratic whisper that is utterly drowned out by the roar of a major political and moral confrontation. This response feels generic, almost dismissive in the face of such profound ethical accusations, and it only serves to highlight the chasm between the government's official line and the genuine public alarm. Farage has not just won the debate, he has decisively won the narrative war, completely undermining the Prime Minister's ethical authority on a subject that resonates deeply with millions of British parents and families. The moral high ground for now belongs to Reform UK, and Starmer, by allowing this trial to proceed, has walked directly into Farage's political crosshairs. Thank you so much for watching.